Think about the last time you watched someone say something cruel, then smile, then somehow walk away looking even more powerful. That moment feels confusing because your logic registers the harm, while your social brain registers the charm, and the charm often wins before logic can speak. Charisma is not just a personality trait, because in real social environments it behaves like a psychological amplifier that changes how people interpret reality. When someone appears confident, your nervous system often assumes they are competent, even when there is no evidence for that assumption. This shortcut is so common that researchers call it the confidence heuristic, and it is one reason loud certainty can outperform quiet truth. The brain loves speed, and charisma offers speed, because it packages meaning in a tone that feels resolved and decisive. A calm, certain voice tells your mind that ambiguity is over, even if the facts are still missing. That is why a charismatic person can deliver a weak argument, but still leave the room with stronger influence than the person who had the better evidence. Most people believe they judge others by character, yet in practice, they often judge by signals that feel like character. One of the strongest signals is status, because humans are social animals trained to track rank for safety. When someone looks high status, your brain becomes more forgiving, more curious, and strangely more willing to reinterpret their behavior in a positive direction. Psychologists call this the halo effect, and it explains how one attractive quality, like charm or confidence, can spill over into assumptions about morality and trustworthiness. Under the halo effect, the mind quietly says, if they seem impressive, they must have good reasons, even when their behavior is clearly harmful. This is where the real danger begins, because harm does not always arrive with a threatening face, and it often arrives wearing competence. Charisma can turn red flags into misunderstandings, and turn discomfort into overthinking, because the social brain prioritizes belonging over accuracy. Belonging is not a soft preference, because the brain processes social exclusion like a threat, and threat changes perception. When a charismatic person controls the emotional temperature of a room, they also control what feels safe to say out loud. In those moments, people do not ask, is this true? Because they are busy asking, will I be punished if I challenge it? This is how a group can watch something wrong happen, then collectively decide it is not wrong, because disagreement feels riskier than compliance. The bystander effect grows stronger in the presence of status, because people look to others for cues, and others often look to the leader. Social proof is powerful precisely because it removes responsibility, and responsibility is emotionally expensive. If everyone laughs, your brain assumes the joke was harmless, even if the joke was actually cruelty disguised as entertainment. If everyone stays quiet, your brain assumes the situation is normal, even if the silence is fear. Charismatic people understand this without needing to say it, because they intuitively sense which behaviors will be rewarded and which will be excused. Many of them do something subtle but consistent, which is to speak as if their perspective is the default reality and everyone else is merely reacting. That framing quietly pushes the burden of proof onto the person who disagrees, which is why speaking up feels like you must build a courtroom case just to be heard. Even worse, charisma can create a feeling of intimacy that tricks people into believing they know the person, even when they know almost nothing. When someone makes you feel seen quickly, your brain releases trust faster than it should, because emotional warmth can mimic safety. This is one reason fast connection can be dangerous, because speed is often used to outrun discernment. A charismatic person may offer intense attention early, then withdraw it later, and that pattern can create emotional dependence even in strong-minded people. The withdrawal matters because intermittent reinforcement is one of the most addictive learning schedules known in behavioral psychology. When reward becomes unpredictable, the brain becomes obsessed, because it starts scanning for the next moment of approval like a gambler scanning for the next win. Over time, people stop asking whether the relationship is healthy, and they start asking how to get the good version of the person back. That shift is not romance, because it is conditioning, and conditioning does not require your consent to function. In everyday life, this looks like someone who can be generous in public, but cold in private. So the victim feels confused and the audience feels impressed. Confusion is not neutral, because confusion delays action, and delay protects the person who benefits from the status quo. The brain hates cognitive dissonance, which is the discomfort of holding two conflicting truths at once, like, they are wonderful, and, they hurt people. To reduce dissonance, most people unconsciously edit reality, and the easiest edit is to downplay the harm. That is why you hear phrases like, they did not mean it, or, they are under stress, or, that is just their style, when the behavior would be condemned in anyone else. When charisma is present, empathy often becomes a weapon used against the observer, because the observer is encouraged to understand the aggressor more than the victim. Moral licensing adds another layer, because if a charismatic person does one visibly good thing, people feel permitted to ignore multiple harmful things. The mind quietly tallies goodness like credits, then spends those credits to excuse cruelty, manipulation, or betrayal. This is how someone can build a reputation as a good person while repeatedly doing harmful acts that somehow never stick to their identity. Reputation is powerful because it becomes a filter, and filters determine what evidence gets attention and what evidence gets dismissed. Once the group agrees someone is exceptional, any criticism begins to sound like jealousy, weakness, or disrespect. The charismatic person may even encourage that narrative subtly, because it turns accountability into a social taboo. In that environment, the victim often starts doubting themselves, not because they are irrational, but because reality keeps getting socially rewritten. Gaslighting is not only an individual tactic, because it can also be a group phenomenon when many people cooperate in denying what happened. The most frightening part is how ordinary this can look from the outside, because the setting might be a workplace, a friend group, a family, or a relationship that looks perfect online. Social media intensifies the effect because visibility creates perceived credibility, and perceived credibility creates automatic trust. A person with an audience feels like a person with proof, even when the audience is just a crowd, not evidence. Humans evolved to treat popularity as a survival cue, because popular often meant protected, and protected often meant safe. In modern life, that ancient wiring can cause people to defend a charismatic figure as if defending them defends the group itself. Once identity becomes tied to the person, criticism feels like an attack on everyone who supported them. That is why scandals sometimes increase loyalty, because defending the person becomes a way to defend one's own judgment. This creates a trap where the more wrong the charismatic person is, the harder some people fight to prove they are right. Meanwhile, the victim begins to feel invisible, because the story is no longer about what happened, but about preserving the image. Image is emotionally cheaper than truth, because truth requires consequences, and consequences require courage. Courage is rare in groups, because standing alone triggers a primal fear of exclusion. The charismatic person does not need to threaten you directly if they can make the crowd do the threatening for them. That is why people who challenge charismatic figures often experience social punishment, subtle ridicule, or sudden isolation that feels disproportionate to what they said. The purpose of that punishment is not justice, because the purpose is deterrence, and deterrence protects power. Power tends to reproduce itself, because power attracts allies, and allies create social proof, and social proof attracts more allies. If you have ever wondered why it is so hard to expose certain people, it is because you are not fighting one person, you are fighting a system of biases that runs automatically. The goal is not paranoia, because the goal is clarity, and clarity begins by recognizing the specific tricks your brain plays under social pressure. One practical defense is to separate presentation from pattern, because charm is presentation and character is pattern over time. Another defense is to watch what happens when boundaries appear, because healthy people respect boundaries, while harmful people punish them. A third defense is to treat consistent accountability as the true sign of integrity, because a person who is safe can tolerate criticism without turning it into war. Notice whether apologies come with changed behavior, because words without behavior are often just reputation management. Pay attention to who benefits when everyone stays confused, because confusion is rarely an accident in systems where power is protected. Look for the moment a charismatic person switches from warm to cold, because that contrast is often used to train people to chase approval. Watch whether they praise you in public and correct you in private, because that pattern can create dependency while preserving their image. Observe how they speak about people who disagree with them, because contempt for disagreement is a preview of how they will treat you when you stop complying. Notice whether they create triangles, which means pulling in third parties to control narratives, because triangles reduce direct accountability. Listen for the language of inevitability, such as "everyone knows," or "people like us," or "that is just how it works," because inevitability is often used to shut down questions. Healthy leaders invite questions, while manipulative leaders invite loyalty, and those two invitations create entirely different cultures. Culture matters because culture determines what behavior is rewarded, what behavior is ignored, and what behavior is punished. If a group rewards charm over truth, you will see truth become dangerous and charm become untouchable. If a group rewards truth over charm, you will see charm become optional and accountability become normal. Changing your environment can be as important as changing your mindset, because constant exposure to distorted norms slowly distorts your self-trust. Self-trust is the quiet skill that protects you, because without it, you start outsourcing your reality to whoever speaks the loudest. The most common regret people describe is not the harm itself, but the period where they sensed the harm and stayed silent anyway. Silence does not always mean agreement, because silence often means fear, and fear is a social technology used by power. When you feel that fear, it is worth asking whether you are in a relationship with the person or in a relationship with the performance. Performances can be magnetic, because performances are designed to be consumed, admired, and defended. Real character is less flashy, but it is consistent in private, consistent under stress, and consistent when no one is watching. Charisma without character is like a beautiful storefront with nothing solid inside, and people keep walking in because the outside feels convincing. The reason this topic is so painful is that many good people blame themselves for being fooled, even though the biases involved are deeply human and widely shared. Being influenced by charm does not mean you are weak, because it means you are social, and social brains are built to respond to social signals. Strength begins when you learn to pause between the signal and the conclusion, and that pause gives logic time to enter the room. In that pause, patterns become visible, and patterns are harder to manipulate than emotions. When patterns become visible, you stop arguing with the person's words and start measuring the person's behavior across time. This is when reality becomes harder to rewrite, because reality is no longer a feeling, it is a record. A record protects you, because it reduces the power of charm to distort memory. It also protects others, because speaking clearly about patterns gives permission for other people to admit what they have been sensing. The moment multiple people name the pattern, the spell of charisma weakens, because social proof starts supporting truth instead of image. That shift is what powerful people fear most, because power survives on silence, confusion, and the belief that you are alone. You are not alone. And the fact that you recognize this topic means your perception is working exactly as it should. If this video describes someone you have dealt with, the next step is not obsession, but boundaries, documentation, and distance, when distance is necessary for sanity. If you want more videos that decode these invisible social forces with precision and calm clarity, subscribe to Psychology Decoded, because the truth becomes easier to hold when you understand how the mind hides it.